Right. On air. Okay, so it says I'm on air. We're having quite a number of difficulties today. So if the room does get disconnected, if you just stay still, it will come reboot us back on. So I don't know whether it's doing that for everyone else or just me, because I can't see Liz. So I'll just wait a moment and see if others are going to come on and whether Liz is able to get back on. Okay, so it looks like we've got a bit of an issue in getting the presentation sorted and people online. So I see that there's a few people online. I'm just waiting for Liz. It seems that we've got a webinar jam problem at the minute, folks. I'm very sorry for the delay. If you didn't hear previously, if we get booted out, it will just reboot us back in. So if it happens to tell you it's booted you out, just wait and it'll bring you back in. I've definitely lost Liz, so I'll wait another few minutes and then I'll get going. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to upload my presentation either because of the issue with the system. So let's hope we can get through this session. If not, don't worry, I will record it tomorrow and send it out on a replay. So let's see how we go, and if we get bummed off or we can't seem to operate, then I'll do it tomorrow. I know many people are wanting to do this now, so I appreciate that everyone's taken time to join us. So please do be patient. I think it's a webinar jam system and not a internet problem, because it looks like Liz can't get in now, which I was having a problem with. Okay, so again, thank you for coming. Now I'm going to be a little bit slow without Liz because I'm going to have to jump around 3 screens to try and figure out what's happening. So thank you for joining the masterclass. If you haven't been here before, and if you have, I'm sorry to say this again, but if you haven't been here before, our mission is to help create 5,000 authentic, adaptive, agile leaders and 1,000 amazing workplaces. That's our mission. That's what we're passionate about, and that's why we're bringing you this masterclass for free. To interact, you can see that on the top right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little hand. You can press that to speak, so you'll come on and speak with me live. And at the bottom, you can see there's a chat mode, and you can send to anybody, although that should be off, and you can send to admin. So if you send to anybody, everybody in the world can see it. But if you send it to admin, it's only myself and Liz that can see it. And we also have a Q&A mode. So if you want to ask a question, please do feel free. And we've talked about this a few times now, but we think our winning formula is business acumen plus HR expertise. This sounds like Liz.
Good morning. Sorry, I was sending a message that we were having our tech problems. So
yeah, I think it's
that's all.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I had the same thing, so I got kicked out several times. So I've just let everybody know if we get kicked out and it's not going to work, then I'll record it tomorrow and do a replay. Okay, so now Liz is here. I can focus on 2 screens instead of 3. Dearie me. Okay, so we believe we have a winning formula in any case. And so if you don't know us, this is Liz. Liz has over 20 years experience as a trainer. I've worked with her for many a moon, little bit longer than 20 years. She's a fantastic trainer and a even more fabulous coach. And my name is Vanessa Giannis. I'm the CEO. So Liz is also our head of learning and development at HR Experts International. And my name is Vanessa Giannis. I'm the CEO. I've had well over 25 years experience, particularly in change, HR. I'm a master behavioural coach and trainer. I have many qualifications, including NLP and some psych qualifications. You name it, I pretty much have it. And I've also led international virtual teams for around about 10 years. So that's us. So Liz will disappear and be in the background as usual. Oh, you're looking very fabulous, Liz. Your new light's looking great.
Yeah, that's all our secrets, Vanessa.
Yeah, I know.
Yes,
sorry, love.
Ring on.
Okay, I'll see you later on. Funny.
Yeah, see you later.
Okay, so if you don't know how this works, Liz is still here. She's just in the background and she's taking comments and questions. And if you do have a comment or question, just let us know your name and where you're from, because we've got people from all over the country, all over the globe. And so it's important for us to, so when I'm talking to you, to know where you're from, so I can just get a feel for that area. Okay, so day 1, we covered preparing yourself to lead effectively, and we covered quite a lot in that session about identifying your stress and own anxiety levels, how to manage your mindset and your state. You'll see why that's important for this session. We then went on to talk about cadence and rhythm and developing a strong cadence and rhythm for your team. Yesterday, we talked about the different change models, the change curve, the 4 faces of fear, and a very quick overview of DISC, which is my favourite thing in the world. And today we're going to talk about an overview of how to help your team through change. So this is a huge subject. That's why we have a 12-week program. And if you did all the programs together, it's a 19-week program, and that sets you up from foundation through to advanced. So I couldn't possibly go through everything I need to go through in this session, but what I've tried to do is give you the real high-level stuff that you can actually think about, the tips and tricks. That's what a masterclass is about. It's about giving you information and models, giving you tips and tricks, and answering questions, and from there. So that's what today's about. Yesterday we talked about where are you on the change curve. So we talked about the change curve yesterday, and I left you with thinking about your team, where your team members might be and where you think you are on that change curve. We talked about the 4 natural responses to fear, and again thinking about what behaviours your team are demonstrating and where you think they might be in terms of a natural reaction to change in terms of fear. And then the final thing we did was talk about DISC, and so maybe you had a little bit of information there that you could identify your style. So it'd be great to know from anybody if you did that work and what you took away from that. And I'll just wait a moment to see if anybody responds. So please don't be shy. I know that this can be a little bit daunting on occasion to put things up, but you know, we only say your first name and where you're from, so we don't give away any secrets. Although I do give away Liz's secrets on a regular basis. Okay, so we haven't had any comments, so I'll move on. Okay, so we are going to be running a little bit behind today, so I'm sorry about that. So it took us about 6 minutes to solve the problem. So anyway, let's strap in and let's get going. So change facilitation, why is change leadership critical? It's been critical for at least 10 years now, and with the world of startups really disrupting the landscape, you know, now we've got COVID-19 that's made a major disruption to pretty much everybody's life on this planet so far, and every business has existed. So if you don't know what VUCA is, or you've never heard that term, it's a term we use in change because it is about the environment we find ourselves in and why change leadership is so critical. And that means VUCA stands for volatile, I've forgotten what they are, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. So we find ourselves in this volatile situation, which is it's never the same. Things are changing regularly, and therefore we have uncertainty. Everything has become more and more complex, and of course that creates a great deal of ambiguity. And as we talked about yesterday, as humans, we love our comfort factors, and when we get to that level of discomfort, we start to potentially have stress and anxiety symptoms, and we start to operate out of fear instead of operating out of a space where we can clearly think. Now, I haven't talked about the neuroscience of fear, stress and anxiety. I will talk a little bit about that next week in our stress and alleviating stress and anxiety session, and a little bit in our sleep session. So please join us for those 2 5-day challenges. And despite 30 odd years of change management and change theory and change initiatives, we still have a spectacular 70% fail rate. And when we talk about fail rate, what that means is the objectives that the change set out to achieve fail to achieve its outcomes. So that is phenomenal. I have been doing change for nearly 30 years myself, and I've delivered hundreds and hundreds of change programs. And for me, I've been very successful in all the change programs I've personally led, because I take a very human-centered approach. And when I'm consulting to organisations, that's exactly what we do. We take a human-centered approach, and I'll talk a little bit about some models about that. But a human-centered approach means that we're focusing on the adaptive leader. And I'll talk a little bit more about adaptive leader versus technical leader or technical manager. So leadership of change is a fundamental skill set. If you don't have it, you need it. There is not going to be one business post-COVID now that won't require significant change leadership skills. So that's why we're running these programs at high margins of discount. Our next program is 90% off. So we're losing money on doing that, but both Liz and I are passionate about that. We know we're all in this together. We want to help build the economy. We want to support you guys out there who are at the cold face of trying to deliver this stuff and lead this stuff. So that's why we do it. Now, John Kotter, if you don't know who John Kotter is, he is the grandfather of change management. So he is a Harvard professor and has been around for good, actually it's 40 years now. I'm in the wrong decade. And in his book in '96, and it's still true today, he said that people who have been through difficult, painful and not very successful change efforts often end up drawing both pessimistic and angry conclusions. Now, that is actually still true today. And despite him having a model, and despite there being many, many models, I'm just trying to see if there's any questions or comments. This is proving a little bit difficult to see. Okay, so I might have to go into this one. Liz, could you just type something to see if it's working so I can just see if it's working, please? Okay, good. It's on slow reaction. Thank you. Okay, so John Cotter's the grandfather. We've had many. You can look them up. There's loads and loads of change models. We've got loads and loads of people-focused models. We've got ADKAR and ProSci and adaptive leadership, and we've got a bunch of them. But we still are failing, and the reason we fail is generally due to leadership. So I'm going to talk about what Kotter says are the key failure areas, and I agree with these. There's probably a few more, but these are the top ones that are fairly regular when I come into organisations and turn around their change programs. There tends to be these sorts of things that are not happening. So the first one is complacency. And that is really complacency of leaders. They just expect that people are going to be able to work through change, that it's not going to be a problem, that they don't have to do anything, that everybody should have their own responsibility to move with change, and to some degree that's true. However, as a leader, that is your job. You're supposed to lead people through. So that means you need to be at the forefront of leading. And so if you're not doing that, then you're being a complacent leader. Uninspired vision. Most of the time I go into organisations, I struggle to find what their vision is, or I have it articulated to me in a way that is consistent and coherent with every executive. So often we have to start with vision, and that's where we start in our programs, in both of our coaching programs, more senior coaching programs. We start with vision. It is critical to have an inspired vision. So if you remember on day one, I asked you, what is your vision for the next 12 months? What do you want these next 12 months to be about? You need that vision now, because you need to help your team through. You need to develop a vision with them, and you need to help them through getting some inspiration through this time. Under communication, I think I've said it in absolutely every single masterclass, there is no such thing as under communication. I have never in my 30 odd years of working with leaders said, you know what, I think you're communicating just a little bit too much. It's never been said. I don't ever recall saying that. What I do recall saying is, we need to do more here. Maybe you should think about this. Maybe you should think about that. Can we do more here? So generally, when I talk to people on the floors or at the front line, I understand that the communication is not getting through to them, or it's not happening in a way that makes sense to them, or they're just not being communicated with because we've been complacent at the top and just assuming that the messages are going to fall down through the organisation. So it's really critical to make sure that we get these right. Not solving roadblocks. We talked on day 2, and hopefully you're starting to see how this all comes together. We talked on day 2 about cadence and rhythm, and one of those cadences was a daily stand-up. And the first thing we do on every daily stand-up after we've gone through what did we achieve yesterday, what do we need to achieve today, is what are our roadblocks and what do we need to solve. So that is, if you follow that methodology, you've got most of this nailed. If you follow what I've said so far, you will be doing all the things to avoid making these big mistakes. So failing to identify short-term gains. Again, if you don't have a vision and you don't have a strategy, then you don't see what those little gains are. And you really need to identify those from people as well. What are the little baby steps, changes that people are making? And neglecting to deal with people and change is also super important. So again, from a person change perspective, it's really important to do a human-centered approach. We talked about yesterday the change curve, the 4 faces of fear. Today we're going to talk about how to deal with that in more detail, and of course failing to work with resistance. So I can't keep going backwards and forwards between screens because I think because I have it on screen share, I might be sharing everything. Let me just see. No, I'm not. Okay, so I'm not moving everybody all over the shop. Okay, so any questions? Okay, all right. So yesterday we talked about the change curve. Now this is a slightly different way I've outlined it here, and I've put it together with, let me just move this out of the way. I've put it together with what's called the Bridges model. Now, Bridges back in 2000 sometime also did a bunch of research. Oh, so Liz is being thrown out and can't get back in. Okay, so this is bother. That'll be why we can't see anything. Oh, yes, everyone's been thrown out. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Liz is still thrown out. So I'm just going to keep going for those of you that are here. I'm not going to keep looking at the question and answer. I'm going to keep going because we're falling behind with all these changes. Liz has just been able to join back in. I'll just keep watching. The problem is I haven't been able to upload the slides, so I can't see what's going on. Now we've lost people again. Are you still here, Liz? Okay. I think this is going to have to call this quits.